Hi, it's Jordan Teen 1, and today I'll be showing you how to make this super cute Minion bag. So this one is about 3.5 inches by 5.5 inches, and it's the perfect size to use for a phone case, or you can use it for a pen or pencil pouch, and really you can use it for a little purse, anything at all that you can fit inside. So he has the little suspenders, and you can either take this apart and then you can see inside here is your opening, or really if you didn't want to bother with having to take it apart, it's pretty easy to just slide these off the side and then just slip them right back over. Now, a few months back I did do a larger version of a Minion bag that I use the hook only, and it's a Lumigurumi style of crocheting rubber bands, and I'll show you what that looks like. So I was really thrilled with the way that this one turned out, and I had a lot of positive feedback, but I did have many people say that they were not good at doing hook only items and they wanted to do something on the loom, which is why I came up with this. Now, if you wanted a larger version that was closer in size to this one, you would have to put two looms together, and I will show you the configuration for that. To make your Minion bag, you can use either one loom or two. And today I'm going to be using the Rainbow Loom, but you can really use any loom as long as the pins are movable. And I will be showing it on one loom. And when you do that, the width of the bag is approximately 3.5 inches. So if you were going to do this on two looms, that would double that, so the width would be approximately 7 inches. And the way that you want to set up your looms is the way I've shown here. So if you have your one loom, you're going to remove that center row of pins, and then you want your smaller blue base plates to be just on the ends. If you're doing two looms, you're going to set it up with same thing, that middle row is gone, but you have the smaller blue base plate on the end, you have the larger blue base plate in the middle, and they're evenly spaced here, so you have 3 pins from each of the sections that are going across the center, and then you have that smaller one on the end. Aside from your loom, the other items you'll need to make your Minion bag are a hook of some sort, and I'm using the Rainbow Loom metal hook. You're going to need 2 buttons, so I have these 2 black round buttons. They're about 1/2 inch. If you're going to use the medium circle burst for your eye, you're going to need something for the center. So this is a nice option. It's a 12mm animal eye. You'll need a few clips, and then as far as your band counts go, you're going to need approximately 657 blue, 422 yellow, 85 black, 28 white, and 42 gray. We're going to begin by making the bottom of the bag, so for that you're going to need 51 blue bands. So I'm going to start by placing one single band straight across on each set of pins. So there's going to be 13 sets in total, since there are 13 pins in each row. And then you just want to push all of that down to the very bottom, because we're going to add some more on top. So the second thing I'm going to do is take 2 bands at once, and I'm going to run them along the bottom row. And I do have my arrows facing to the right, pointing towards the right, so that's where all the opened ends are. And I'm going to do this from the left to right. So 2 at a time here. And as you're putting them on, you want to try and get them as straight as possible. Try and keep them from twisting around or overlapping one another. Sometimes I see they do want to overlap just a bit. And then here's my last set. And then on this very end pin over on the right, I'm going to triple a band. So I think the easiest way is to just place it on the pin, twist, and loop it back on, pull it out again, twist, and then just loop it back on. Then what I'm going to do is just turn my loom so that the arrows are facing towards me. And what I'm going to do is just loop this left-hand side. So at the very bottom here we have this tripled band. You're going to just take your hook, push back on those 3 loops, and what we're doing is we're just grabbing these 2 loops that we just put on the loom. We're not doing anything with this very bottom. Just going to pull those up through and move them forward. So I'll be doing that same thing the whole way up. Just make sure you're leaving that one single rubber band that we had done in the first row on the bottom of each pin. And when you're getting them to go on the pins themselves, just make sure that you're getting both loops to go around. And then you're just going to turn your loom back to the original position. And now what I'm going to do is just reach down through each one of these, and I'm going to pull this bottom rubber band up through and go back to this upper row of pins. So it is going to be a little bit tight. It's kind of a long stretch. I actually had tried several different methods of how to do the base, and I thought this was the cleanest, neatest way to do it. I think it's pretty secure and strong at the bottom. This one's a little bit tighter to get off. And it also is the least bulky. So now again I'm going to push all of this down to the bottom. And then the next thing I'm going to do is string another row that's going to go straight across. So again, it's just going to be a single band. It's a repeat of that very first row that we did. And then what I'm going to do is take all of these bands here that are on the bottom of these pins that are closest to you, the bottom row. You're going to grab all of that and pull it up and over. And it looks like I have one here that didn't quite make all of the rubber bands off, so there we go. So you can see how it's pulling all the way over towards the upper side. And now what we're going to do is take the other half of this band, which should be the very top here on this top row. I'm going to grab that, and that's going to pull down. So just make sure as you're doing it that you're getting just that very top. So this is just going to even this all out. So then if you notice, it's going to be pulled to the one side and also being pulled to the other side. And this will be the bottom of your bag. And then you're just going to push everything down to the bottom. Next we're going to do 14 rows of blue, and I will do the first row with you, but I'm going to let you do the other 13 rows on your own because it's very repetitive and it's pretty easy. So I'm going to start at the bottom left here, and I'm just going to make a rectangle, stringing these all the way around. So I'm just going to come all the way down the bottom row here. And I should know that these are just single rubber bands. That's what we're going to be working with pretty much for the whole rest of the bag. And then when you get to the bottom right corner, you're just going to go straight up to the top right corner, and then you're just working your way back. And then same thing, you should have one left, and you're just going all the way back to the start. And now it's just a matter of taking the bottom two bands and just pulling them up and over the top. So it really is quite easy and straightforward. If you've made any kind of bracelets or done anything on the Rainbow Loom before, you should be pretty familiar with how to do this. And then you're just flipping to the reverse side here. Same thing, just the bottom two coming over. Just make sure you get two bands each time, and that it's clearing the pin. Sometimes it wants to sort of sit on top of the pin. And then all you're going to do is just push this all the way down to the bottom, just so you have room to add your next layer. So you're just going to repeat that 13 more times, the same exact way, making your rectangle and then looping the bottom too. So you can pause your video and do that now, and I will meet you back here shortly. The next thing we're going to do is to add the loops to attach the suspenders. So for that I have 8 blue rubber bands, and we're going to do 4 on the left side and 4 on the right. So these are just going to be doubled onto each of the pins. So I'm taking my first one and starting on the pin on the far left here, and I'm just going to place it on that pin, twist, and then just loop it back on. And I'm going to do 4 on this side. And then I'm going to repeat that same pattern on the right. So starting on the very end, I'm just doubling these. If you wanted to, you could use your hook to double them, but I find this to be just about the easiest for me. And then the next thing that I'll do is to take my hook and reach down inside of these doubled bands that we just put on. I'm going to take my hook, I'm going to pull back and then grab the band that's underneath. Actually, it's 2 bands underneath. I'm going to just pull this off of the pin, slide that doubled band on there, and then just very carefully replace that. Make sure both loops are getting back on. Do the same thing for every place that we put that doubled band. So just pull back, grab the bottom 2, and then slide that right off the pin. You can see how that band sort of jumped up my hook. I'm just going to slide it back down and then replace that. So that's all you're going to do. That's just going to get that doubled band to be attached, and that's just going to hang loose. And then when we're ready to do the suspenders, we're going to place those back on the pins, and then that's going to be the base to build the suspenders. And now we're just going to do that same thing for the 4 loops that are over here on the right side. So pull back, pull up through, slide off, and then get it right back on. The trickiest thing is just making sure that you're getting both of those loops to go back on, and also to keep that doubled loop to stay at the bottom. And then here's one more. And push all of this down. Next we're going to switch to yellow. So I have 26 bands. It's going to be laid the same way that we've been doing the blue bands. So you're just going to start and work your way around the rectangle. And so we're going to do 7 rows with the yellow. So again, I'm going to do that first row with you, and then you can pause your video and do the remaining 6 rows. So I'm just going to lay my bands, and I'm going to start at the bottom left here. Just going to keep up with that same pattern. It honestly doesn't matter which way you put your bands on, but it's good if you keep it consistent. So since I was always starting in the bottom left, I'm going to just continue that. And then I'm moving here straight up, and then back across. And then finally, all the way back to the start. And then it's just a matter of pulling off the bottom 2, So everybody should totally have the hang of this by now, if you didn't already before you started. And then you're just going to push everything down like you've been doing. And so as I said, we're doing 7 rows total, so you need to pause here and do your remaining 6 rows. For the next row, you're going to need 26 black, and this is going to be the first of 3 black rows. So you're still doing that same rectangular pattern, starting in the bottom left, and they are single rubber bands. And then back to the start. And then again, just as we've been doing, you want the bottom 2. So this time they happen to be all yellow. And then again, push everything down. And then what you're going to do is 2 more rows of black, so you can pause your video and do those now. Next we'll do 7 rows of yellow. So again, you need 26 bands per row. And once again, I'll do the first row with you. So same exact scenario, just doing single rubber bands. And then once again, the bottom 2 come off. So this time it's going to be all the black. So you're pushing everything down. And then you're going to go ahead and pause and finish doing the remaining 6 yellow rows. We're going to be doing 1 final row of yellow to finish off the top edge. So I will be using double bands for that, so you're going to need a total of 52 yellow. So really it's just a matter of using 2 at once and then just following around with that same pattern. At this point you're going to have 6 loops on each pin, but you still just want to take the bottom 2 and pull them over the top. Now to remove this from the loom, what we're going to do is start in the bottom left hand corner, and I'm going to reach down. You should have 4 loops on each of your pins. So if you want to make it a little bit easier on yourself, what you can do is separate these into groups of 2. So you have your bottom 2 and your top 2. And then what you're going to do is take your hook and reach down inside, push back on the top 2, grab the bottom 2, they're going to come up through and move to the next pin over. So now you're going to actually have 6 loops, and you're going to push your hook down through, push back on the top 4. You're always grabbing just those bottom 2, pulling them up through, and moving them over to the next pin. Again, it's always going to be 6, push back on the top 4, bottom 2 come up through and over. So we're just going to repeat that process the whole way around. Sometimes it can be a little bit tricky to get them separated, which is why I suggested that you can do that ahead of time. You just need to make sure that you don't miss any, because if you don't have them all totally hooked together, when you go to take this off of the loom, it will come apart. And if that happens, it's really, really difficult to try and save it and get everything back on the way it's supposed to be. And also, as you're doing this, just be very careful that you don't lose the loops off of your hook when you're transferring. And then when you get to the corner, again, you're just pulling up the bottom 2, and it's just following around to the top right corner. And then once again, this is actually going to be a really awkward angle for me to show here, but you're still just taking the bottom 2 and moving all the way up. Here's the last one from the top. It's coming up through and moving down to the bottom. And then once again, you will have to go down through this and pull the last 2 up. So you just want to leave that on your hook. I would suggest putting a finger on it and then just carefully release these. I can pull this out, and where these extra loops we added are, that is the back side. So that would make this the front. Now you will see some kind of curling at the top. It shouldn't be too bad. That's why I use that double row at the top, to try and prevent it from having all that curl. But what you also can do is just take a minute and really try and turn this so you're pushing the outer side up and pushing the underside down, just to try and counteract that curve. And you are going to need to tie this off, so what I would suggest is to go through some of the bands on the inside. As a matter of fact, let me just take this off and pinch this in my fingers. I'm going to come up through and sort of pull these 2 bands down inside, just to get them a little bit more hidden. And then from the inside here, I'm going to go through a loop or two. And I'll take an additional band. I'm going to pull through everything and then make a really nice and tight slip knot. So one goes through the other, pull that nice and tight, and then you're going to just reach up inside, just sort of follow that row down, and just go in through a couple of loops, and you can just pull this inside. So you may have to go through several if you want to get it completely hidden. The next thing I'm going to show you how to make are the suspenders, and they're really quite easy to do. You have your main piece here where you have these loops. That's where the suspender is going to connect, and it's where it's going to begin. So you can see that I've taken another row off of my loom because you really only need the one row, and I have the arrows facing towards the right, but it really doesn't matter. And I'm going to take these 4 loops that I have attached on here, and I'm going to get these to go on the pins. So just take the 2 loops, each one should have 2 loops. Doesn't really matter where on the row of pins you put them, as long as you have 4 in a row. So we'll be doing a total of 38 rows. So I'm going to start this with you, and then I'll let you finish the rest on your own. So I'm just laying them from left to right. We're doing the single bands, and then the bottom 2 are going to come over the top. So on the 2 end pins, you're always going to have 1 left after you loop, and then on the 2 center pins, you're always going to have 2. So as I said, you can see it's super easy. I'll show you one more time here. This is our 3rd row. So you're just going to continue on in that same pattern. You're going to make 35 more rows, and then I will meet you back here shortly. When you've done your 38 rows and you're ready to take this off of the loom, you're going to start on the end, take that band into the next pin to the center. Same thing with the left side here, just move it in. And then you're going to take the bottom 2 bands and pull them over the top. And then you're going to have just 1 band left on the 2 center pins. So what you're going to do is take your hook and grab both of these bands. So you'll have them just on your hook here. And then what I want to do is I'm going to have to tie these 2 loops off, but I don't want to tie them together here because I don't want it to be sticking out the bottom. So I'm going to just very carefully take my hook out. I want to make sure that these don't come apart. If you wanted to, you could put a clip on either one just to make it more secure. But I'm going to actually go on the inside here, the side that would go against the bag here. I'm going to just put my hook underneath some of these loops, and then I'm going to grab the one side and pull that through. And then I think I am actually going to use a clip. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the other side. I'm kind of making a crisscross here. Just go through some of these loops. Get the other end and pull that through to the back. And now what I'm going to do is take the both loops and I'm going to tie this off. So all I've done is just loop these underneath the back just so the tie off is going to be hidden. So I'm taking that additional band, pull through both, one through the other to make that nice and tight slip knot. And then I just need to hide this loop. So again, I'm just going to go through some bands on the back side and just kind of weave this in and out until it's hidden. So now you'll see if you put this up the back and down the front, we will add our button here, and then that will be our first suspender. So you're just going to repeat all of these steps again to do your second suspender. So it's just a matter of taking your loom and getting these other 4 loops to go back on. Again, it doesn't really matter which pins as long as you do 4 in a row. And make sure you're getting both of the loops to go on. And then you're just going to do 38 more rows and then finish it off on the end as I just showed you. So you can pause your video and do that now. Once you've completed both suspenders, then you're going to add the buttons for the closure. So the buttons I'm using are round, they're black, and the size is approximately 1/2 inch. So you can see I've already strung a rubber band through each one of those using a twist tie. And you need to decide where you want to place these. So if you take the suspender and move it down, you want to try and do it close to the outside edge and also fairly close to where the yellow and the blue meet. So I think what I'm going to do is go to this second row over, and by row I mean these vertical rows that make sort of like V shapes from pulling the bottom bands over the top. I'm going to go to the second row over and I'll go to the second little blue V down. That's where I'm going to place it. So I need to take my hook and push out through one side. I'm going to grab one side of the loop here, pull through to the back, and then I'm just going to go over to the opposite side and push out, grab the other end, and pull through. So you may have to take this and fold it down just so you can see what you're doing. Hopefully you can get a view here. So I have the 2 blue loops. I'm going to pull one through the other, and then I'm not going to go right next to where this is. I'm going to go over a little bit farther to give some tension on this band. I'm going to go over maybe like 1 or 2 rows, and I'm going to go under another inside band. Take this, pull one through the other, and make a really nice and tight slip knot. Now I would recommend hiding this, even though you're not going to actually see it. I would recommend tucking it in just so when you're pulling the items inside in and out, whether it be your phone or whatever you might want to be using this for, that those loops aren't making it get hung up. So I think I need to pull this a little bit tighter and then even hide it under the next one as well. So it should be nice and secure then. And I'll just flip this back around. And I need to attach my second button. So I'm going to do the same thing on the opposite side here. And then you have your suspender that's going to come up and over. And then I would say probably, if you look here, not on the very end, but I would go maybe to the second or third spot up. It depends on the tightness here. See where it looks like it lays. So I think maybe I'll go to this third spot. I'm going to stick my hook down through the middle and sort of spread this open, and then that's where the button's going to come up through. And I'll do the same thing for the other side here. So I want to make it even. So I'm going to go to the, not the end, but the third little hole in the middle here. Stretch this open. And then get the button to come up through. Now what I would recommend also is to tack this on the back. Obviously you can't tack it on the front because this has to lift up for you to get in and out of here. But on the back side, I would tack it at least 1 or 2 places along here just to keep it stationary. So let me just unbutton this and I'll show you what I mean by tacking it. You want to take a few extra bands, and wherever you want it to go against here, I would recommend maybe 1 closer to the bottom and then 1 to the top. You're just going to see where you want it spaced, take your hook and from inside just reach up, and then also go through a loop or 2 on the back. Take your band, I'm using yellow, pull through to the back, and then come up through right next to it. Grab the other end and pull that through to the back. And then on the inside here, you should have 2 loops. Actually, my hook is caught in one of the loops, so it looks like I have 3 on here. Just take one off. So I have my 2 loops, one pulls through the other, and then you're just going to pull that nice and tight, and then just like we did before, you want to make sure that you're hiding this loop underneath some of the bands on the inside. So then I would do that again closer to the top. So you would just repeat that tacking process once again. The next thing I'll show you is how to add the mouth. So I'm going to be using 3 black bands, and then I have 1 yellow just to tie it off inside. So really you can use any number you want, it just depends on how big you want your mouth to be. And I need to find the center here, which is this row right here. And I'm just going to be doing 1 that's coming diagonally down, 1 across, and then 1 back up. So I think what I'm going to do is to fold the top half of this down, just so I have a little bit more room to work. And again, here's the center, and I want the mouth to be closer to the bottom here, but a little bit above where the blue starts. So I think maybe I'll go to this next row over, and I'll go right about here. So I'm just going to push my hook up through, take my first black, it's going to pull through to the back, and then I'm coming down and to the right, grab the other end of that and pull through to the back. So I have my 2 black bands on my hook, and I'm just going to take one and pull it through the other. Then I'm coming back up through this same hole, and this time I'm grabbing my second band, and it's going to come straight across this time. Grab the other end and pull it through to the back. Now I have my 3 black loops. Actually, it looks like I have 4. I think the one came apart from the other, where I had pulled one through the other, but that's alright. I'm just going to pull through everything. It'll still work out fine. And then I'm coming back up through, and I have my last black band. This is coming through to the back, and this time I'm going to come diagonally up and to the right, pull through to the back, and then one through the others. And then I'm going to go a little bit away from here, maybe like 2 rows over, go through a band, pull through both, nice and tight, and tie that off. And then, as usual, I want to hide this. So I'm just going to go through a couple of rows just on the inside and pull that loop down through. There are a few different options you can use to make the eye, and the one I am actually going to show in this tutorial is this eye. It's the same one that I made for my larger Minion bag, and this is a hook-only design. So here's what it looks like. You can see what it looks like when you put it on. I think it turns out really cute. If you do not want to do a hook-only design, or you struggle with those, I have another one that you can make on the loom, and this one is the medium circle burst. So all you would do is use white for the inside, and then use silver for the outer edge. And then what I have here is I have this little animal eye. It's made by Darius. It's a 12mm, and then you can just stick this in the middle, or if you don't have that, you can use a bead or a button and tack this in the center. So I really like it with this brown eye, and then it would look like that. So I'm not actually going to film making the medium circle burst for the eye, since I already have a tutorial available for that on my channel. I will just add the link. The eye is going to begin with a magic ring of 3, so for that you're going to need 4 black rubber bands. And I am going to be using a twist tie just to help me get the magic ring started, but that is optional. And then you will need a stitch marker or a clip. So I'm going to take my twist tie and put it right next to my hook. If you don't have this, you would just use your plain hook. And then I'm going to take my first band and triple this. So I'm just twisting and putting it back on till I have 3 loops. And then I'm going to fold my twist tie in half, and that's just going to help hold those 3 loops together. I'm going to pull through my first band, get the other end back on, and one through the other, and then back through from the front through those 3 loops. And I'm pulling through my second, one pulls through the other 2, and then back through one more time, and then I'm going to remove this twist tie. And it is a very small magic ring, so you're going to have to stretch this around as best as you can, try and get it around pretty far, and then you're going to use your clip and put that on the band that's on your hook. In row 2, you'll need 9 white rubber bands, and we're going to be doing 3 single crochet into each one of our 3 stitches. So it is that small magic ring, so your stitch that you need to go to is going to be stretched pretty far over here. So you want to find that over here on the left and go under both loops from front to back. We're going to do a slip stitch since we're changing color, so I'm going through all. And then I'm going back under that same stitch for my second, and then back under one more time for my third. And then I'm moving to my next stitch now. You might want to stretch this out. It's a little bit hard to see where you're going under because it's so small, but just stretch all this out, and then you should see your next stitch over here to the left. And again, we're doing 3, so that's 1, 2, and 3, and then the last stitch should be where your clip is. Make sure you're going under both loops, and again we have the 3. So there's 1, 2, and 3. And then I'm just going to move my clip. In row 3, you'll need a total of 14 white bands, and we are doing an increase in every other stitch. So you can see the pattern is 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and so on. So here's where we left off, and let me just point out that it may look like this first little white is a stitch we need to go under, but it's actually not, because we had done that slip stitch. It's really what I call a false stitch. So just ignore that. It's really this next one that we're going under. And you're doing 2 into this first one, and then 1 in the next, and then an increase, and a single, and so I'm just going to keep repeating that pattern because we want this to still grow, so that's why we're continuing to do an increase. And we started with an increase, and then in the very last stitch we're going to also end on an increase, just because there's an uneven number of stitches. So here's my last single, and then where my clip is, I have 2. Just going to move my stitch marker, and it is going to sort of curl inward, but you can just sort of take your fingers and sort of flatten this out, stretch it out, because we want it to be more flat. In row 4, we're changing to gray, and you'll need 41 bands. So the way that the pattern is, it's going to be 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, so it's an increase in every other. But if you look, the bands are basically doubled because we're doing a stitch of what I'm considering a half double crochet. So basically you need twice as many, except for at the start, and I'll show you that. So here's what we've been working on. You're going to that next stitch over. We're going to take our first band, and it's going to pull through everything, do that slip stitch, and back on your hook. Then you're just going to leave those 2 loops in your finger and go back through that same stitch for your second band. So then you'll have the 4 loops, and then the one at the top is going to pull through all. And if you hold this section and pull down on it as you're pulling your hook through, it's going to help it from getting hung up. So you're always going to have 2 loops left, and when you have 4 loops, that's when the upper one will pull through. So I'm moving over to my next stitch. I'll pull through 1 because this one's a single, so I have the 4 loops, and then the upper band is going to pull through all 4. Now in the next one I have a double, so the first one's going to come under, back on, so you have the 4 loops, and then the upper one's going to pull through all, and since I have 2 in this one, I'm going under that same stitch again, pull through my second band, and then that upper band pulls through all. So now I'm onto a single, so it's just that one, and then the upper band pulls through everything. So it may seem a little bit confusing at first, but I think once you do a couple you'll get the hang of it. So this is my first in this stitch, and then a second. So this is the half double crochet, and you can see that it's giving you that extra height than what a single would. And now this one is just one. Let me just slide these over. So I did this because I wanted the gray, which is the goggles, to be more outstanding here around the eye. I think it gives it a nice look. And now I have just one. So there's one, and here's my second. I think the hardest part is just trying not to get hung up as you're pulling the band through the other ones. So this is one. Actually, I think I just grabbed the wrong one from the pile. This one was supposed to be over here. And now I have two in this one. And one for this. So we're almost done here. I'm in my second to last stitch here. So that's one. And two. And now in this very last one, I have just a single. So I can now take my clip out, and I do need to close this off. So what I'm going to do is take the one end and pull it through the other to make a slip knot. And then I'm going to take my hook and I'm going to reach down through the back side here, through a couple of these bands, go inside, maybe like 2 or 3, and I'll take an additional gray band. I'm going to pull through everything and make a nice and tight slip knot. And then I'm going to reach inside here again, go inside a lot of these loops, and I'm just going to take my loose band here and just hide that. So just try and make sure that the end isn't sticking out. And here is our eye. The last thing we'll do is to attach the eye. So for that, I just grabbed some white rubber bands. I have about 5 or 6 here. And we're going to do this the same way that we've been adding everything else on. You want to find where you want it positioned, and then from the back you're just going to reach through, and then I'm going to actually come all the way up through the white part. I'll take my first band, pull it through to the back, and if you wanted to, you could just attach it through the back loops. You don't have to push up all the way through. But then I'm going to that next little section over, push up, make sure you're going through the white if you're using a white band, and pull through to the back, and then one through the other. And then I'm just going to move over a little bit, push up through, pull through to the back, and then move over to the very next one, push up through, get that other side to the back. You have your 3 loops, one through the other 2. And then I'm going to come down sort of towards the bottom. Again, pull one end through. It feels like I'm caught up here. I was caught up on a yellow band, so let me just fix that. And then push up through to the next little section, pull through. Again, I have my 3 white. Actually, one already looped on, so one through the other 2. And I think maybe one more spot over here. I'm going to push up through and just tack it over here. Again, I see I'm hooked on some yellow, so I'll just get rid of those. One through the other 2. Whoops, I just lost it. Let me get it right back on. And then I'm just going to take one additional band here, go through everything, and make that slip knot, and then finally hide this. Whoops, didn't quite go through everything. There we go. And so now your little minion bag is complete. I hope that everyone loves their new minion bags made on the loom. You can always leave me comments on YouTube and Facebook. You can post pictures of your creations to my Facebook page. And please feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and that way you can get notified when I have new tutorials available. You can also find me on Pinterest and Instagram, so please feel free to subscribe to those as well, and then you can also post pictures there and leave comments as well. Thanks for watching!